because we sharpened our teeth on pathology, but it's heart of coaching. This is 14 sessions with 14 different interventions that you can apply in the corporation, to yourself, with your children. So that's an important reference for you. So the question is, does it work? Is what we did in the Army, what we do in positive education, this is done in schools all over the world, and it's done in corporations. And the way you decide whether or not something works these days is we used to just do one study, and if it worked, we proudly said it worked. But now we have meta-analyses in which you can take a whole large literature, and there are 5 meta-analyses of the interventions we're talking about, involving about 330 articles and about 75,000 people. And it turns out the positive interventions and the positive programs reliably produce small to moderate positive effects, increasing well-being, decreasing depression, decreasing anxiety. So what I've just talked about is effective, and it works. I want to talk about the corporation for about 5 minutes. One of the advantages of working with the United States Army is, unlike most psychologists, I didn't have to do sampling. I had everybody. So I'm now going to tell you the data on everybody in the United States Army. So we had 900,000 people. On day 1, they take the test of psychological positive, negatives, and other variables. And then it's important because the United States Army has 150 different jobs. It's not just the infantry, but there's HR, there's IP, the whole works. And the Army gives 2 medals of interest that 12% of the Army over 5 years wins. One's called exemplary work, the other is called heroism. So the question was, could you predict who's going to win the exemplary work award and who's going to win heroism awards? And the answer is there are 3 variables on day 1 that robustly predict being an exemplary worker or a hero. The first variable is optimism, and we've discussed that one. The optimistic people are more likely to do well at work and on the battlefield. The second variable that predicts it is high positive emotion. And the third variable is not being a complainer, low negative emotions. So the message of this is hire happy people. So to the extent you want a good workforce and you have the latitude to hire happy people, hire happy people. Then, as most of us, we're stuck with people who are not happy in our workforce. And here, in a moment, we'll talk about coaching. But basically, it says you can do positive intervention coaching to increase well-being. By the way, this also predicts post-traumatic stress disorder. So again, this is everyone, 77,000 people. They're deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. 5% of them are diagnosed with PTSD. The answer was, could you predict from day 1 who's going to come down with PTSD? And the answer is yes. The first thing we knew was the more severe the combat, the more likely PTSD. And everyone knew that already. But it turned out it was the catastrophizers facing either high combat or low combat who are more than double likely to come down with PTSD. So there are 6 questions on day 1 of the form. When bad events occur to you, does everything unravel? And it's the extreme pessimists who are vulnerable to PTSD. And this is a life-saving matter. It tells you who not to deploy on really risky situations. And then what happened a year ago was the work of Emmanuel Deneuve and George Wald. So this is the problem of, is it profitable to build happiness in the workplace? And up until a year ago, there are about 50 studies of productivity and well-being and happiness, and they all go in the direction of the more well-being, the higher productivity, but it's not a scientifically robust area. So what Deneuve did was to take 1,600 publicly traded North American companies that employ 15 million people, and they asked the question of, could you predict from happiness at time one of the workforce, stock market price and productivity and profitability of the company? There are 4 questions that are asked. The first, and it's on a 1 to 4 scale. The first question is, I'm happy at work most of the time. The second is, my work has a sense of purpose. The third is, I'm completely satisfied with my job. And the last one is, I'm stressed at work, inversely scored. And what you do is you plot on a 1 to 4 scale here at time 1, over the next 9 months, what is the profitability of the company? And you can see here that it's a linear function of firm value, return on assets, profitability, and it turns out stock market price as well. So this is the first time I've been convinced that when I encounter a CFO and I give my spiel on good to be happy, and he asks, is it profitable? The answer is yes. Happiness in the workplace is profitable. Importantly, a company I work for, BetterUp, I'm a member of their science board, asked the question, in coaching with positive interventions, how do you affect those 4 variables? And so I asked them to plot it with the last 40,000 people they had coached, and it turns out over 4 months you see a substantial increase in those 4 variables. So that says hire happy people, but if you don't have everyone happy, give them positive psychology coaching. Brand new stuff. I'm interested in predicting elections, and can you hear me? Can you hear me back there? Yeah, okay. So years ago, I used optimism and pessimism of nomination acceptance speeches to try to predict which candidate was going to win. And up through 1988, we found that 21 out of 24 presidential elections, if you content analyze the optimism of the nomination speech, the more optimistic candidate won. Well, unfortunately, when we published this, the Democrats and Republicans, they wrote me and they said, how do you give optimistic speeches? And so, being non-political, I sent them both the manuals on how to content analyze an optimistic speech. And after that,